Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. This is our group in the title of Assessing Listening about the material of assessment in English language teaching. So this is the 10th material, which is assessing listening. It's me, Erra Fazhira, as the moderator, and I'm here with my friend Septi Tri Ani, Hilda Nur Lailiyah, and Isham Taufiqi. So let's begin our discussion today. Observing the performance of the four skills. All language users perform the acts of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Before focusing on listening itself, there are two interacting concepts of performance and observation. Well, why performance and observing is related to each other? Let's see the next slide. The two interacting concepts, which is performance and observing, why it is related to assessing listening. Because as a teacher, we often forget that we need to relay as much as possible to observe the performance in our assessment of student. Because observable means being able to see and hear the performance of the learner. So we feel the sense of touch, taste, and smell. Well, why we need to do that? Because in assessing listening, we need to know the skills and the ability of our learners. So we need to see their performance when they are speaking, when they are reading, and when they are writing. Because we cannot just listen. It's so hard to know that someone is listening because we cannot just see someone is listening just because they are nodding or just because they are smiling, or it is just because we are asking, are you listening? No, we cannot assess someone listening that way. There are more complicated way. That is why we need to observing the performance of the four skill. And besides that, there are the importance of learning, which will be explained in the next slide. What is the importance of listening? Listening has often played second fiddle to its counterpart, which is speaking. In the standardized testing industry, a number of separate oral production tests are available. Every teacher of language knows that one's oral production ability, other than monologue, speech, reading aloud, and the like, is only as good as one listening comprehension ability. You must be confused about what I'm talking now. So I'm going to explain it to you to make you understand. Why? Why is the reason that listening need to be implied as the component of speaking? How could you speak a language without also listening? The first thing you do when you want to speak a language, you need to listen. As example, you like Korean drama and you really, really like Korean drama. There are many scenes that you love. And you also want to try to speak that language, right? So you will listen that a lot. So there is no way for you to speak a language without listening. And therefore we need to pay a close attention to listening as a model of performance for assessment in the classroom, because it is very important. Listening is as important as speaking, reading, and writing. And there are also the basic type of listening that will be explained by my friends Hilda. So here you go.
Thank you, Mbak Erra.
My pleasure.
Next slide. Next slide, Isham. Back. Keliru. Okay, thank you. So there is a basic Basic types of listening. Designing appropriate assessment tasks in listening begin with the specification of objective or criteria. The objective may be classified in terms of several types of listening performance. There is two stages in processing the flash through your brain. First, comprehending of surface structure, elements such as phonemes, words, intonation, or a grammatical category. Second, the understanding of pragmatic context. And the third is the determining of pragmatic context. And the last is developing of this global or comprehensive understanding. From this fourth stage, we can drive our commonly identified types of listening performance, such as the first is intensive. So intensive is listening for perception of the components such as phonemes, words, intonation, and etc. of a larger stretch of language. The second is responsive. So responsive is listening to a relatively short stretch of language, such as a greeting, question, a comment, and etc. in order to make an equally short response. And the third is selective. So selective is processing stretches of discourse, such as a short monologue for several minutes in order to scan for certain information. The purpose of such performance is to compose stretches of spoken language, such as classroom direction from a teacher, stories, news. Assessment task in selective listening could be like lectures to listening to a conversation and verifying a comprehensive message or purpose, and listening for the keys for the main idea and making inference are all part of extensive listening. So that's all for me. The next part, the next is Tri Ani.
All right, thank you, Hilda. The next slide will be explain about the micro and macro scale of listening. It will be explained by Ani. Off you go.
Thank you, Mbak Erra. Okay, micro and macro skills of listening. A useful way to be insight in the performance of listening comprehension. Micro and macro skills are useful in specifying objectives for learning and test makers to carefully identify specific assessments. Macro skills are relevant to what can be done at a sentence level, while micro skills refer to what can be done at a discourse level. The micro and macro skills provide 17 different objectives to assess in listening. Micro skills discriminate among the distinctive sounds of English, retain chunks of language of different lengths in short-term memory, recognize English stress patterns, words in stressed and unstressed positions, rhythm structure, recognize status forms of words. Next slide. In macro skills, recognize the communicative functions of utterances according to situations, participants, and goals. In per situation, participants goals using real-world knowledge from events, ideas, and so on describe specific outcomes, infer links and connections between events, status cases, and effects. Implicit in the taxonomy above is a notion of what makes many aspects of listening difficult, or why listening is not simply a linear process of recording lines of language as they are transmitted into our brain. Some things what makes listening difficult is clustering, redundancy, reduced from performance variable, co- collo- colloquial language, rate of delivery, stress, rhythm and intonation, and the last is interaction, managing the interactive flow of language from listening. I think that's all from me. Back to moderator.
All right, thank you, Annie, for the presentation. Here is our last slide of this material, which is designing assessment text that will be explained by Isham. Isham, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Erra. Designing assessment tasks. Intensive listening. Once you have determined objectives, your next step is to design the test, including making decisions about how you will elicit performance and how you will expect the test taker to respond. We will look at tests that range from intensive listening performance, such as minimal phonemic pair recognition, to extensive comprehension of language in communicative context. The focus in this section is the micro skills of intensive listening. Recognizing phonological and morphological elements. A typical form of intensive listening at this level is the assessment of recognition of phonological and morphological elements of language. A classic test task gives a spoken stimulus and asks test taker to identify the stimulus from two or more choices, as in the following two examples. Phonemic pair consonants. Test takers here, he is from California, and test takers read A, he is from California, B, she is from California. And the second, phonemic pair vowels. Test takers, is he living? And test takers read A, is he living? B, is he living? In both cases above, minimal phonemic distinction are the target. If you are testing recognition of morphology, you can use the same format. Morphology pair ed ending. Test takers here, I miss you very much, and test takers read A, I miss you very much, B, I miss you very much. Hearing the past tense morpheme in the sentence challenge even advanced learner, especially if no context is provided. Stressed and unstressed words may also be tested with the same rubric. In following example, the radius from contraction of cannot is tested. Stress pattern in can't. Test takers here. My girlfriend can't go to the party. Test takers read A, my girlfriend can't go to the party. B, my girlfriend can go to the party. Because they are then decontextualized, this kind of tests leave something to be desired in their authenticity, but they are a step better than items that simply provide a one-word stimulus. And one-word stimulus, test takers here, fine, test takers read A, fine, and B, wine. The next step up on the scale of listening comprehension microscale is words, phrase, and sentence, which are frequently assessed by providing a stimulus sentence and asking the test taker to choose the correct paraphrase from a number of choices. Sentence paraphrase. Test takers here. Hello, my name's Keiko. I come from Japan. Test takers here. A. Keiko is comfortable in Japan. B. Keiko wants to come to Japan. C. Keiko is Japanese. D. Keiko likes Japan. In the above item, the idiomatic form from is a phrase being tested. To add a little context, a conversation can be the stimulus task to which test taker must respond with the correct paraphrase. Dialogue paraphrase. Test takers here. Man, hi Maria, my name's George. The woman, nice to meet you, George. Are you American? Man, no, I'm Canadian. Number 2, responsive listening. A question and answer format can provide some interactivity in the slower end listening task. The test taker's response is the appropriate answer to a question. Appropriate response to a question. Test takers here. How much time did you take to do your homework? Test takers read A in about an hour, B about an hour, C about $10. D, yes, I did. And the objective of this item is recognition of the question how much and its appropriate response. The structure are chosen to represent common linear errors. A, responding to how much versus how much longer. Confusing how much in the reference to time versus the more frequent reference to money, and confusing a question with a yes or no question. None of the tests so far discussed have to be framed in a multiple choice format. They can be offered in a more open-ended framework in which test takers write or speak the response. The above item would then look like this. Open-ended response to a question. Test takers here. How much time did you take to do your homework? Test takers write or speak. If open-ended response formats gain a small amount of authenticity and creativity, they of course suffer some in their practicality, as teachers must then read students' response and judge their appropriates, which takes time. Number 3, selective listening. A third type of listening performance is selective listening, in which the test takers listen to a limited quantity of oral input and must discern within it some specified information. A number of techniques have been used that require selective listening. Listening close tasks, sometimes called close dictation or partial dictation, require the test taker to listen to a story, monologue, or conversation and simultaneously read the written text in which selected word or phrase have been deleted. Closed procedure is most commonly associated with reading only. In its generic form, the test consists of a passage in which every named word, typically every 7 words, is deleted, and the test taker is asked to supply an appropriate word in listening closed test. Test takers see a transcript of the passage that they are listening to and fill in the blanks with the word or phrase that they hear. One potential weakness of listening close techniques is that they may simply become reading comprehension tests. Test takers who are asked to listen to a story with periodic deletions in the written version may not need to listen at all, yet may still be able to respond with the appropriate word or phrase. You can guard against this eventually if the blanks are items with high information load that cannot be casually predicted simply by reading the passage. In the example below, adapted from Bailey 19 and 98, such a shortcoming was avoided by focusing only on the first line of numbers. Test taker hear an announcement from an R line again and see the transcript with the underlined word. Other listening clause tasks may focus on a grammatical category such as verb tense, articles, two-word verb, preposition or transition words, or phrase. Notice two important structural difference between listening clause tasks and standard reading clause. In a listening clause, deletion are governed by the objective of the test, not by mathematical deletion of every nine word, and more than one word may be deleted. Listening clause tests are normally use an exact word method of scoring in which you accept as a correct response only the actual word or phrase that was spoken and consider other appropriate word as incorrect. Next is information transfer. Selective listening can also be assessed through an information transfer technique in which orally processed information must be transferred to a visual representation, such as labeling a diagram, identifying an element in a picture, completing a form, or showing roads on a map. The preceding example illustrates the need for test takers to focus on just the relevant information. The objective of this task is to test preposition and prepositional phrase of location. So other words and phrases such as backyard, yesterday, last few seats, and scare are supplied only as context and need not be tested. The task also presupposes, of course, that test takers are able to identify the difference between a bird and a squirrel. In another genre of picture good test, a number of people and or action are presented in one picture, such as a group of people at a party, assuming that all the items, people, and action are clearly depicted and understood by the test taker. Assessment may take the form of question. Is the tall man near the door talking to a short woman? True or false? The woman wearing a red skirt is watching TV. Identification. Point to the person who is standing behind the lamp. Draw a circle around the person to the left of the couch. The next is sentence repetition. Sentence repetition is a far from a flawless listening assessment task, but noted that such tasks are not just tasks of listening, but tests of general skills. Further, this task must test only recognition of sounds, and it can easily be contaminated by lack of short-term memory ability. This invalidating it is an assessment of comprehension alone, and the teacher may never be able to distinguish a listening comprehension error from an oral production error. Therefore, sentence repetition tasks should be used with caution. Okay, that's all for me. Back to moderator.
All right. There was a very clear, brief description about designing assessment. So, guys, I think that is all for our material today, the assessing of listening. I hope it will help you to understand how and why and to be a good teacher. So, don't forget to give your question if you have anything to ask. We will wait for you, and thank you for your attention. Have a great day.